I was diagnosed with overwork at the time when I started experiencing temporary vision loss. So I love working, but at that moment I was thinking, well, something was wrong because you can't work like that. And I was still in my 20s. So I was thinking, if I have to do that for still 30 years of my life, I can't do it like this. So we need to learn to choose what deserves our time and what doesn't. Productivity is not busyness, but to be productive, you need to get busy, good busy. So productivity is a game of decisions.
Coach me if you can. Coach me if you can. Coach me if you can. Coach me if you can.
When's the last time you opened your calendar and felt in control? And if you open your calendar and have a look at it, does it look like you have a life? If the answer is no, fear not, you're going to want to hear this one. So for me, the calendar has been a source of stress. I get bombarded with meeting requests and it feels often like I'm on a productivity treadmill without achieving much. Never-ending game of Tetris without any space in my calendar. Now, to change this, I found myself a coach, expert at creating space in calendars. Enter Kate Sotsenko, leadership coach and productivity expert. We sat down for 90 minutes and she busted open my strategy for my calendar and we created a whole new one. So before we get into it, just a couple of details on Kate. Kate Sotsenko, based in Cyprus, helps leaders around the world free up 30% of their time from tasks that she calls bad busy work. So the kind of stuff that clogs up your calendar, that doesn't serve you. She wasn't always a coach. She spent a decade becoming a tennis pro before going into the corporate sector. She worked at companies like Levi's, Gucci, IWC, etc. So the chaos I brought into this coaching call was my calendar stress. I told her straight, Kate, when I open my calendar, it looks pretty stressful to me. And she expertly navigated coaching me versus consulting me. So typically in coaching, you don't give advice. You let the coachee come up with his or her advice. But also, I wanted Kate to unlock her brain, and she did so. We busted open my strategy for my calendar and created a whole new one. And I know that if I follow this, it's going to kill my calendar stress for good. So she left me with a 15-minute daily habit that if I followed, would get rid of my calendar stress. But here's the truth. I have to do the work. I have to build a habit. And usually I do the work and I shut the laptop as quick as possible to run down to my family, right? So sitting for 15 minutes to organize my calendar will be tricky. But the moment I hit publish, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm not going to come out of these coaching sessions telling you that every single time I've come out a changed man. No, here I've been handed something that will undoubtedly work. I just have to do it. And I'm going to keep you guys in the loop how I get on. So if you feel stuck in endless meetings, you're busy but not productive, and if deep down you have the feeling that when you look at your calendar, you don't have a life, this episode is for you. Kate is going to show you how to get clear on what matters most. Enjoy Kate Sotsenko.
Kate, welcome to Coach Me If You Can. I think it's safe to say that my life is very chaotic at the moment. I burnt out something like 1.5 years ago, and I realized that after burnout, your energy and your time is something you want to protect. It becomes a resource that you protect. On the topic of productivity, if I just think about opening up my calendar, I wonder if it goes for the listeners the same. It feels like an endless game of Tetris where I'm just trying to squash everything in the whole time. Yeah. And I'd say the calendar's a bit of a source of stress for me. So, Kate, welcome to the show and thanks for joining us.
Well, hi, everyone. And hi, Peter. Thank you for having me.
What do you do and why do you do it, Kate?
So I coach mid-senior corporate leaders. I help them to free up time, 30% of their time, as you mentioned earlier, from what I call unnecessary work or bed busy work. There is a lot of research that says that up to 50% of the work that we do in the office, in the workplace, is actually lost to a lot of unproductive activities. And we can certainly cut at least 30% of that, 50%. So that's what I'm helping leaders to do. But before that, I was in corporate world myself. I was in corporate roles for 15 years. And that's why I know that this problem does exist firsthand. And I solved it for myself. And hopefully now I can help other people to solve it and feel more comfortable at their job overall. And hopefully they can spend more time in the evening doing what they love and with people they love instead of their
Okay. And you mentioned good busy, bad busy. Would you mind kind of walking us through what comes to mind when you think about good busy versus bad busy? What are the characteristics?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we probably need to take a step back and just ask ourselves, why do we think that being busy is a bad thing overall, right?
Okay.
There is a whole conversation around busyness is not productivity and we need to stop being busy. And I even read a headline, busy is a bad word. Well, I actually went to the good old dictionary and I checked what busy means. And busy simply means being occupied. Actually, even better, it means being occupied with one thing, giving full attention to one thing. Being busy simply means monotasking, right? So think about it. When we go to the doctors and the receptionist says, well, doctor is busy, please take a seat. Do we immediately think that doctor is, doing something that they shouldn't be doing? No, we think that they're working, they're helping another patient, right? So why do we think that busyness is a bad thing? And somehow it became a synonym of something bad in the workplace. So yes, definitely there is, as I like to say, productivity is not busyness, but to be productive, you have to get busy. And the reality of the human nature is that we like to be busy, but we don't like sometimes what we're busy with. And that's the problem. So when we are good busy, we feel there is that progress we are making towards something. And that towards something is the goal that we're working towards to, whether it's a project goal, meeting goal, whether it's a yearly goal that we set for ourselves or for our team. And it feels right. There is that positive feeling of energy. Yes, you're tired, but you feel motivated and you're energized and you're going forward, right? And bad busyness is absolutely the opposite. It's just being busy with something that makes you feel productive, but you're actually not because you're not moving the needle, right? There are plenty examples of that in the workplace. Reports. There are reports that we do that nobody reads, but we still do them because they are important and because they were asked, and we never asked who reads them, what's the purpose, how can I optimize them so that they actually bring value. So that is the bad busyness. The bad busyness, the example that I gave earlier around the inbox, spending your evening with the inbox, because we are wired to think that every email is important and urgent. But the question that I always like to ask here, well, if your house was on fire, would you actually email the firefighters or would you call them, right? So think about it. Like when we think of our phone was invented to call, but when was the last time that people actually used it to call? Everybody's emailing, everybody's DMing on Teams, Slack. Nobody's calling anymore, right? So this is kind of the difference between, good busyness that moves us forward, creates that progress and gives us energy as well, although it feels tiring because we put a lot of effort as well. And the bad busyness that actually drains us because we are doing things, but we don't see any progress because we are busy with things that very often shouldn't be done at all.
How did you get into this topic? You mentioned you improved your own life. You became more productive, happier. Could you walk us through that journey?
Yeah. So I think like many, many of us, I was also educated that productivity was about doing more. So I had to do more and then I would get more done and then I would achieve more and I would be more successful. And that's the mindset I lived with in my 20s. And that's the mindset that led me to, I was never diagnosed with burnout because I truly believe that that's something that needs to be diagnosed, but I was diagnosed with overwork. Maybe that's a synonym for burnout. And I was diagnosed with overwork at the time when I started experiencing temporary vision loss. So I love working, but at that moment I was thinking, well, something was wrong because you can't work like that. And I was still in my 20s. So I was thinking, if I have to do that for still 30 years of my life, I can't do it like this. There should be a different way. And luckily, I changed companies at that time and actually changed countries, because in my 20s, I spent a few years in China. And after China, I moved to Thailand. And Thailand has a very different culture overall. And I also moved to a company that had a philosophy called slow life. So the whole idea was, it was a hospitality company. The whole idea was you, as a client, you come to our resort and you're here to disconnect, to slow down, to actually leave, to enjoy the moment. And what I realized is that I achieved so many things in that company, but I've never felt like I was on a high-speed train. I just did the right thing. And that kind of brought me that idea that you can actually be busy, but you can be busy in a good way, meaning that you're creating progress, but you're not rushing through things and maybe taking completely irrational decisions and just moving, 300 kilometers per hour. And then when I kind of, after that experience, a lot of people used to ask me, how are you doing? I would say, oh, I'm good, I'm busy. And they would say, oh, I'm so sorry. I know, me too. I would never understand, why do they say sorry when I say busy? Because being busy is not a bad thing, right? And that sort of gave me that idea that there is maybe something to dig into that. But overall, I do like working, and I am a productive person. And even at the time when I was, in my craziness, doing a million things a day and not feeling great about it, I was still probably more productive than many other people around me. And sort of discovering the different way of viewing productivity and being productive, and discovering how much I loved actually coaching and training, that kind of gave me the idea that this is something that I could explore, because it's nice to have happy people around you. And that's what
that can be infectious.
and that's what I want, sort of, for my clients and people that I work with. I just want them to be happy both at work and after work.
Walk us through your scope of when you deal with clients. Where does what you do start and where does it finish? I'm guessing it's not just calendars and to-do lists. I can imagine as a coach, you might be tackling some life issues that, maybe root causes that if you go there first, then people can be more productive.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I do both. So I coach people, but I also consult people, because sometimes, some people come to me and say, well, I think I know the tips. I think I know how it works, but it's still not working for me. So there is definitely something that maybe I don't know. So there, it's a different approach to coaching. Where coaching, as coaches, we do believe that people that we work with are resourceful, so they do have the answers, right? And it's coaching, one is not better than the other. It's just depending what is the expectation, what do people want, and what is the goal that we're working towards too. So there are people who come to me just with a very concrete question. I'm like, I had one who came to me saying, I'm in an email jail. Just help me. Just get me out of there.
Email jail, I like that.
Yeah, they called it email jail. And I like the term because I feel like a lot of people feel like they are in the email jail. And what we did, it was more a consultation approach. So they showed me their email management system, the number of inboxes they had, and sort of we walked through how they manage their calendar and things like this. So it was a very hands-on approach. And then in coaching, for example, I have people who come to me maybe with more leadership questions and say, well, I want to be a productive leader. So I want to, achieve results, and I want to lead a great team, and I want to feel good about it, but I also want to have a life after work. So I don't necessarily like the term work-life balance because I think that work is part of life. So I don't like that separation. I do follow Roberto Ferraro on LinkedIn, and he is a great creator that we're now friends, and I like his term, a work-life integration. I like it much better, but overall for me, it's just life. Like, why are we separating it? So I think work gives us much more than we think, because if work didn't give us so much joy and energy in our life, a lot of people who are actually out of work right now wouldn't be looking for work, but they are looking for work. And a lot of people who retire wouldn't be eager to go back to work and wouldn't be depressed, because there are a lot of reports that show that people are very much depressed when they leave the workforce. So work is life. We just need to change how we work and how we approach it. So this is kind of the aspect that I tackle, like in a more deeper, areas when it comes to coaching.
So very, very kind of on a tactical level, almost going through the habits that people have, inboxes, how they're, the inbox hygiene, maybe one can also call it. If you looked at mine, it's extremely messy. There are unread emails. There aren't neat boxes. There's definitely nothing that remotely like inbox zero. But that's something maybe we can unpack later. But I'm getting a good idea of what you do. Do you have maybe a case that you could mention of a client that you maybe helped that came to you with a problem that you managed to kind of turn around together with the client?
Yeah, so there are quite a few. One that I mentioned is about the email jail. So it was quite. Let's say it was a short collaboration because it was extremely, extremely specific, right? So we went really down to the understanding the email management system and understanding why it was not working and what changes should be done. The calendar, the same. One of the things that people generally tend to do is to, a lot of people use time boxing because it's a very popular technique. The problem is the way they're using it. So they time box every single minute of the day, and they're running out of time because when they time box, they forget that they're humans. And you mentioned the word that I often use myself, Tetris game. And it's a fantastic thing to do with your calendar. That's why I always say your calendar should be a Tetris game. But in order for it to be a Tetris game, it needs to have blank spaces. If you don't have blank spaces, there is nothing that you can move around. And this is sort of what I try to do and teach the client how they can move and time box more efficiently. And the other mistake that very often they do is that they color code their calendar in a way that it looks like a rainbow. But there is a big problem with that.
Mine looks like a traffic light. I was excited to tell you about my traffic light, Kate, because I thought maybe she's going to be happy with this. See, mine doesn't look like a rainbow. It looks like a traffic light in terms of energy. But tell me about the rainbow.
Does it have the red color in it though?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So
I mean, this is just something I saw on LinkedIn, and I thought, this looks interesting, and I'll find out who it was. But the gentleman said, the red tasks are tasks that drain my energy. The green tasks are one where I'm in a flow state. Okay. The yellow ones are tasks or meetings where I'm on the fence. And I thought that's interesting because I was often thinking about the to-do list and meetings, and almost the things that I had to do were my focus rather than am I in my element and how am I spending my energy. So I don't know if this is the right way for me, because that's something maybe we can talk about, but it was definitely a new lens for me to look at my calendar as energy. And that's what I kind of liked about that. In terms of habits, it's also not sticking. So I'm not religious when it comes to that. I should be. But it's very much I'm trying things out as I go.
Yeah, it's an interesting way, as you said it.
If you say that to a Brit understands, then it's also...
Yeah, I worked with Brits, so I know what interesting means, the underlying meaning of, that's interesting. Let's move on.
Okay.
So, I think that there is if we talk a little bit about the colors, right? So there is a little bit of psychology here that we need to understand. What drives your actions, right? Calendar is the best productivity app that you can have, and it's the only one that you actually need to be productive. But because it's nicer to have something trendier and fancy and to say, well, I use this because someone else is using that. But in reality, calendar is all you need. You don't need anything else.
Hey.
The thing about the colors is that to take action, we are much more likely to take action, 80% more likely to take action when we see something. Think of your notifications on your phone, right? Why are they actually sending you the notification that you can see instead of just being it a ding?
Yeah.
Because if it's just a ding, you are only 11% likely to take action on it. But if you see it, you are 80% more likely to take action on
That's
it.
fascinating.
Right?
Wow.
So if we think about why, for example, TV commercials are more expensive and work actually much better, right, versus radio in the past on our like podcasts, for example, is the same reason. It's when I just hear the sound, bling, it just quickly fades away. But when I see it, it just sticks in my memory much better. We are very, very visual humans. And there are so many examples on that, right? For example, that's where the expressions are coming from. Seeing is believing, right? Eating with eyes, or keep your eyes on the goal.
Yeah.
Right. So the colors that you're going to use, right, are going to influence how you feel about your day, your work, anything that is happening in your life.
It's true, because the red ones almost prime me to be a bit grumpy when I go into these meetings, right? I'm like, I have to then other people can't see that this is, how I behave in a red meeting. But yeah.
Exactly. So actually, if it's we all are going to have tasks that are, let's say, you can call them draining tasks, or you can call them the tasks that you still must do because it's just life. There are tasks that you still need to do, right? Let's just call them, like some of them, for example, admin tasks. Who like to do admin tasks? Nobody likes to do admin tasks, right? But what you can do is to prime your brain to see them slightly differently. And you can still use energy. We can talk about it later. But if you are already putting them in red color, red is a color, depending on the culture, obviously, in Asian culture, it's a color of good luck, for example.
Oh, here it's warning. Like even
Here
how I see it's warning.
It's
like
warning, right? It's danger. And that's what you're communicating to your brain when you're going there. So how are you going to feel? You're immediately, everything inside of you just says, oh.
Yes.
Right? So
Right.
that should be the opposite. Actually, there is a great example. I don't do that, but I just want to mention that there is somebody I've been following on YouTube for many years. His name is Ali Abdal. He's a productivity expert. He's a doctor turned YouTuber productivity expert. And he has this thing he calls this admin party. Because party, he sees that little emoji that he puts there, and yes, it's still admin, but for him, it's like it says party. There's a party emoji, right? So it actually gives them completely different emotions.
That is so good, because my wife and I do the same when we have to do tax. We have a glass of red wine when we're doing it. We're both sitting there with our laptops, and we look forward to it now. We're like, okay, it takes the edge off.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to do everything with the red wine, although I wouldn't say no, but it's a glass of wine. But it's that's kind of like the whole idea, right? There's a great quote that I read. It's in a book by Stephen Kotler, The Art of Impossible. And he talks about flow and the state of flow. And one of the quotes that I really, really like there is emotions, color, perceptions. And
emotions, color, perceptions.
Yeah. And so what you are communicating to yourself with colors, right? Every color is associated to something. You are communicating to yourself those emotions. And so your emotion colors the perception of the work, of the meeting, of the thing that you need to do.
Okay, we need a new strategy for my calendar, Kate.
Yeah,
I was so excited to tell you about this. I'm like, I'm going to impress her with this one.
I'm glad that you didn't name that person who,
Yeah.
But I'm not. Look, what I think also is that there is no such thing as one size fits all.
For everything. Yeah, for sure.
And so if that's something that works for that person, and maybe they have an explanation to why it works for them and it could work for other people, why not? But you have to try it. If you've tried it and you still don't feel, good looking at your calendar, then it means that it's not working for you. Then you need something else. But I think that it's great to try different things. That's how you actually build awareness about yourself and you understand what works and what doesn't.
Kate, we're going to do a fact or fiction.
Yeah.
This is where I throw a couple of statements your way and you can tell me if it's fact or fiction. And you can use a minute or two of reflection if you want to. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Multitasking is an effective way to get more done in less time.
It's a fiction.
Fiction.
Pretty.
Almost like annoyed you a little bit. I can see it in your...
I'll give you a very simple example. How many athletes have you seen multitasking?
True. And we just learned the definition of being busy is a monotask and not a multitask, right?
But when we speak about productivity and performance, very often we go into athlete sports and they say, get the athlete-like performance or athlete-like focus. How do they do that? They monotask. They are focused on one thing at a time. They don't email and, play tennis. I played tennis for 10 years. So that's kind of the difference. And multitasking is actually the reason why we think busyness is bad. But it's not busyness, it's the multitasking, right? In 99% of people admit to multitasking in meetings, and meetings drain us. Of course they drain us because you don't hear anything that is happening there because you're multitasking. That's, I can go and on and on and on.
Yeah,
and
but
on
it resonates for sure. I mean, I have one-on-ones with my boss, and I mentioned this to him. What did I love about the last week? What did I loathe? And he said, "Yeah, what did you loathe last week?" And I said, it was a meeting that I was in, and I was doing a different task.
Yeah.
And I was listening into the meeting, and I was completely floored after that exercise of kind of being busy, maybe mentioning a thing or two, but actually trying to finish another task.
Yeah.
And I was depleted, and it was 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
It was before lunch, and so that was a big learning for me not to do that again. Work expands to fill the time available for its completion.
Quick one from me. This episode is brought to you by InnerBuddies. InnerBuddies is a young modern company in the Netherlands. They're a spin-off from Maastricht University, and they do something rather specific and actually darn cool. So they study poop. They study the microbiome, they study the gut, and they do that through studying poop. So they studied my poo 5 times now over the last 3 years, and I must say I'm a complete convert. So since then I've lost 30 kilos, I've beaten hand eczema, and I'm actually probably, as lots of people around you might say, a lot less irritable than I was, which is probably like a public service. So they send one of these test kits home to you. You go to the toilet, you put some data in the toilet, if you know what I mean. You scoop some of the data off and you mail it to them. And 4 to 6 weeks later, you get a personalized dashboard. Now, the dashboard shows you exactly what's happening on the inside. It shows your microbiome, what bacteria are thriving, which ones have gone AWOL, and how you can use nutrition and supplements to sort things out. Now, through it, I pinpointed low levels of certain bacteria, good bacteria, lactobacillus. I'm lactose intolerant, lacto, I get it. They make a topic that is very scientific, incredibly easy to navigate for us mere non-scientific folk, and they make it fun. So I've done it 5 times. It's surely not the last time. It's a bit clever, it's a bit strange, and it works. If you've ever wondered why your energy's low, why your skin's flaring up, why you're irritable, or why your third coffee is just not hitting right and you're running off to the toilet the whole time, your gut might be trying to tell you something, and InnerBuddies helps you listen. Go check out the boys and girls at InnerBuddies, www.innerbuddies.com, and use the code WELLERGUTS at checkout for a small discount. So, and by the way, we've just released an episode with COO of InnerBuddies, Crystal Creek. It's funny, it's fascinating, and slightly more comfortable than this ad is. So go have a listen, and to steal her words, poop it, scoop it, know it. Back to the show.
Work expands to fill the time available for its completion.
It's a fact. It's Parkinson's law. So
You get a bonus point
I
for mentioning
get
that.
thank you. I actually was talking about that at dinner with my family. So my brother-in-law was actually mentioning how sometimes when he thinks he has 2 weeks to do something, it takes him much longer, and he will actually take 2 weeks instead of when he says to himself, you know what, just take 1 hour and do it now. And he gives himself that pressure and does it now, and he completes the task now instead of waiting for it for taking 2 weeks and doing it maybe a bit at a time, etc. That's why, going back to the calendar, the default settings in the calendar are very dangerous. Most meetings are 30 minutes and 60 minutes. But the reality is that sometimes you don't even need 30, and sometimes you don't even need 60, right? So for example, I was working with a company last year, consulting their team. I think there was around 20 people in the team in total. One of the things that they started doing is going from 60-minute meeting to 45. So they cut 15 minutes, because the more tiny pressure you put, the more focused you're going to be. The more focused you are, the faster you're going to reach the goal of that meeting. But if you give yourself more time, you're just going to extend that, and you're going your focus is going to wobble. So
Fascinating on a kind of a company scale, how that would amplify and compound the more people that do that, and the inverse, how much time a company and money consequently a company can save by just shaving off a little bit. Okay. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, you should do it immediately.
Yes, it's a fact. I mean, that's what I would do. Sometimes even less than 5 minutes, I would say. I think you should do it right away, especially when you're working on kind of your to-do list and you're planning your week or your day, depending on how you work. Those tasks under 5 minutes, just do them right away. It's going to give you a massive, massive head start. Yeah.
Okay. 80% of the outcomes are driven by 20% of the efforts, meaning that prioritization is key to maximizing productivity.
And we all know the 80-20, the Pareto principle, right? And yet we are still trying to get everything done in our to-do list, knowing that only 20% of that to-do list will give us 80% of the result, right?
I've got a good anecdote in a minute to share you about this principle. As soon as we finish the game, I'll do that.
Yeah.
We both mentioned burnout. You mentioned vision loss even. Burnout happens suddenly, like a switch flipping off.
I'm not a burnout expert. Okay, so maybe burnout experts will say it can happen this way. I think that's why I can't say it's a fact or it's a fiction. I think based on what I know and how it happened to me, that it's more gradual, but there might be the cases that happen right away. What I think it's important to just take in consideration when we talk about burnout, it became a trendy word. And there is a big difference between fatigue and burnout. We all get tired. It's absolutely normal. But I did have even a friend who would tell me they are burnout, and yet on Saturday and Sunday, they are hiking, traveling, going out with friends. So I love my friends, and they know that I can be very direct, but it's because I want to help. If they come to me for help, then I will challenge you. And I will ask you, how come you're only burned out from Monday to Friday and not on Saturdays and Sundays? And that's why I say you need to probably ask better questions, right? Before you self-diagnose yourself, because it's such a trendy word. Coming back to, we talked about visuals earlier, but the same goes with words, right? Words can change immediately sort of our hormones and make us feel different about the work or the situation or about the person. So if you're telling constantly to yourself, I'm burned out, I burn out, well, you will burn out. There's no other way, right? And that's what how your body feels and how your body perceives everything that is going around you. So you need to be very, very careful. Because being tired is normal, fatigue is normal, burnout is danger. It's really, a health hazard.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe the most successful people say no to almost everything.
I know that a lot of people would say it's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say so. I think that the most successful people are intentional with their no's and yes. Because what you said, like, there's a common advice, no must be a default. No, because no means yes to something else. So no must be intentional as yes must be intentional. I don't believe in defaults. In calendar, they are not doing good to you. Why would they do good to you in your life? You need to know what worth your time and what doesn't deserve your time, what is not worth it. And that's like more intentional approach rather than, saying yes, because yes is a no to something else. So no is a yes to something else. So what are you saying yes and no to? That's the question that you need to ask.
Kate, you survived fact or fiction,
Yes.
and you got 2 bonus points for mentioning different
the terms.
Yeah,
Okay,
well done.
Good. I know something about productivity.
Yeah. Right. So now we're at the heart of the show, Kate, the coaching session. So this is where I hand over the reins to you, and we can explore. We mentioned a couple of things that we might explore. Definitely an anecdote that I wanted to share with you, and hopefully that we can unpack. But again, I'm handing over the reins to you, and we'll do this for about 45 minutes.
Okay, good. So the first question then I would like to ask you is, what would you like to bring into the coaching session today?
So definitely 2 things. Maybe the source, how calendars, to-do lists in my life can be a source of stress. That's one thing for sure. And the other anecdote is, and it's something I've just been chewing on since I started the podcast and since I started my new job. I absolutely love my job. I absolutely love my podcast. And the fact that I've been spending quite a bit of time doing my podcast has made me so much better at work. And it's like more gets added to your task. You have to become better at time management. But for me, I would have never thought that if someone does more of what they love, they can even be so much better. And just to share an anecdote, I spend a lot of time managing this podcast and working on that. And sometimes it even cuts into my work time. And I changed my strategy on how to deal with my work. And when I'm there, the gloves are off. Usually I would overthink. Now I don't. Now I share ideas with the right people. And there's just been this positive snowball effect at work. So I don't know what you could do with that, but that's something which was a big learning for me, because for the first time in 2 years, I'm on a very amazing path where I'm working on a passion project that lights up all the light bulbs. And I'm in a career that I absolutely love. And if someone would have told me this 2 years ago, I would have thought like, no way. So yeah, there's that anecdote, and also the part that still calendars and to-do lists can be a bit of a stress factor for me, for sure.
Okay. So thank you for sharing the how the podcast has impacted your work in, better. It made it better. It made you more efficient. So there are 2 things that you've shared. You shared, there is a stress source, and that's the to-do list and the calendar. And then there is the anecdote and how actually we seem not to have enough time. And then suddenly we add something to our plate. And actually we not only get time for that, but we also get time for more things and make them better.
Exactly.
So because these are 2 different topics, right? And for us to make this coaching session valuable to you, which topic would you like to explore?
Definitely the stress part. And maybe if we want to go for something lighter towards the end, we can touch on the anecdote again. But I'd love to pick your brain, as it were, when it comes to the stress of a calendar and the stress of a to-do list.
Okay. In the coaching session, we're going to pick your brain, though.
Okay.
But what we're going to
Good.
do, if, and I would like to ask your permission for that, if we can make it sort of a coaching consulting session at the same time. So
Yes.
then, so because the coaching part is where I ask you questions, and that's what consultants also do. But what coaches don't do is offer you direct advice. And what I would do here, sort of in the consulting role as well, is maybe share with you some tips and advice
Love it.
that
Great.
could work, right?
Works for me.
So if we talk about this stress source, right, what would you like to get out at the end of our conversation?
A new method to try, maybe a different perspective on understanding that, maybe even how far my current practice is away from best practice. But anything, definitely a challenge or a different way to go about it would be something I'd definitely take much enjoyment in trying out, because what I do at the moment can be improved for sure. To give you an example, I have a work calendar, I have a private life calendar. I now use Calendly for the podcast, so there's a kind of a routine there, which is amazing. First, it was just for the get to know yous, like the one we had. Now it's also for booking the podcast sessions. So I'm improving in some areas, but still it's a mess between my work calendar and my private life. And I also don't really want to pollinate both of them, that everybody at work can see my private stuff and vice versa. And there's a bit of fear of missing stuff, being late to meetings, or kind of, that's quite a fear of mine. Well, maybe not fear is not the right word, but it's something that stresses me for sure.
So if it's okay, I'll just play it back to you. So
Yep.
what I heard is that at the end of the conversation, you would like to maybe find a new method to try.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something that you mentioned. I would just want to get a little bit of perspective on, how far am I from, I'm going to use quotes here, best practices. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then we talk about, I'm getting better. I certainly have some way to go, but I'm currently facing a few restrictions because I have different calendars that I'm using. I don't want people to see at work everything else that is happening in my life. Yeah. And yet I do have a bit of stress from the fact that if I am late to things or I miss things, I am not at my best. Did I get it?
Absolutely. And also vice versa. When I'm looking at my private calendar, I don't want to be thinking of work topics. So there is a kind of a separation between those two worlds. And that's a very tricky bit to be in now, how to improve my calendar skills, as it were, time management skills.
What I'm curious about, you mentioned the word best practice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so how does, in your head right now, let's say if I were to follow a best practice, what would that best practice be?
You mentioned earlier that often in coaching, the individuals are resourceful and some answers are in them. I definitely know that I could improve my calendar game, if we called it like that, immensely by having habits that I back up. So reviewing the next day before it actually happens, planning ahead, maybe even looking at a week, what worked, what didn't work, where was I completely depleted, like that one example I gave you, without actually looking at best practices or tactics within the actual calendar. I think habits surrounding my calendar behavior and my calendar hygiene, I think I can improve for sure. I've never been someone who plans a day ahead or who looks back at a day, but I like the idea of doing that, and I like the idea of looking back at a week and just asking myself the question, like, what worked, what didn't work. And
I'm curious, why do you like that idea of planning ahead or looking back?
Because I think there's probably a lot of maybe intelligence is the wrong word, but if I were to do that every week, I would also learn more about myself and the techniques and the methods, things that don't work, that don't agree with me, try and avoid those. You learn more about yourself in the process. So that's something I like about the looking back. And looking forward, yeah, I think it would take some of the stress away. I know what to expect the next day. Maybe if I'm looking at this the previous evening and I make time for this, I already organize something, or I can cut something out, or I kind of know how the day is going to go in my head before I'm actually in it. So it doesn't feel like the train's left the station and I'm running to get on the train.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm on the train from moment one.
Okay, so it feels like the planning part is about priming yourself, right? And
Yes.
priming your brain. And looking back, you mentioned it's all about kind of learning, getting that becoming more self-aware, right?
100%.
So we're talking about your habits now. So what are habits that currently work well for you that you are aware of?
Don't know what the habits there are, but maybe a concept. I'm very self-aware when it comes to my strengths. And so prioritizing tasks, I would definitely prioritize tasks where I can apply most of my strengths. And I probably believe that those tasks leave me strengthened as opposed to weakened. So I very much know things that I want to be doing, that I want to volunteer for. And that's proven so valuable at work, but also for this podcast, like stuff where I am in my strength zone, that I do very well. I don't know if that's a habit, but that's something in terms of becoming more self-aware. It's definitely a habit. If a new task is presented to me, I would go through a kind of a in my brain, and I would analyze the task and like, how far away is this from my stuff that leaves me strengthened. And I do this instinctually now, or habitually, definitely. So I'm very self-aware when it comes to my strengths.
That's very good, because as you said, you're using this to work on your to-do list and to pick, to choose the things that are worth doing, because these are the things that correspond to your strength.
Yeah. And this would be a mental to-do list, Kate.
Yeah.
This wouldn't be a very hygienic, pretty looking list. This would be, definitely takes mental energy to upkeep this list in my head. Yeah.
Okay. So the to-do list seems to be like the third flowing topic in our conversation. And if it's okay, we park it for now so that we move with the calendar. So what is another, and we speak again back to habits, what's another habit that you could say, well, I'm doing this right now and that's working very well for my calendar. That's like something that I feel comfortable with.
Also, I don't know if it's a habit, but the Calendly thing I mentioned, I mean, this was just more work being put on my plate. And I thought, this is going to drive me mad if I'm constantly just managing, when are you available, sending people options. And now I have it kind of streamlined. I'm air quoting streamlined. But that works great for me. It's taken that whole potential stress factor away, and the system is kind of running itself. That's almost like an automized habit that I'm doing, but it's working for me.
Yeah. Okay. So that's more like a tool that you're using. When it comes to your calendar management, what's there that you say, well, this one I shouldn't let go because I've built that awareness that is really working well for me, and I should keep it because it actually works. Is there anything?
If I go through that in my head, I definitely know which meetings are very important to me, which meetings I'm going to be at my best at. And it's almost, I'm definitely preparing more for those meetings. So that's very much a lens that I use through which I look at meetings in terms of my strengths. Yeah.
So you mentioned the word preparing, right? And earlier you talked about something that is actually missing in your calendar management, and that's planning. They seem to be quite, synonymous, preparation and planning. And what you said now is that if this meeting is important, I am preparing. And that's a strength for me. That preparation is a strength.
Yeah.
So if I bring back to the planning,
Yeah.
and the fact that it's not being done now, how would your life and calendar feeling and emotions and stress change if you actually apply that to your calendar and start planning ahead?
A lot better, for sure.
And what's in the way?
Yeah, I think it's just when I have my evenings, I want to be doing them, typically it's chatting with my wife. Often it's Netflix. Sometimes it's a glass of wine. Those things have definite priority, and it's just something that, hasn't crept in yet. But I think if it did, and I did that, I think the small wins would actually be quite big, and I'd notice an impact. But it's just something in terms of building habits. It's never really happened. I've also never really tried to do that the night before, review the next day.
I do hear a little bit of assumption though here that the planning takes, the daily planning takes the whole evening.
Yeah, maybe that was how I was kind of painting it. Maybe that's not fair. No, but that's a good question to ask, right? How much, being as concrete as possible now. How if it's half an hour, it's if it's 20 minutes even, then I'm a whole lot. It's different. It carries a different weight in my mind. How I was framing my free time goes for yet another kind of task. But if we think about making it concrete and saying 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, I'm preparing the next day, then we're reducing the barrier of me doing it.
So if realistically, your schedule, the amount of work that you have today, the errands, responsibilities, and things like that, realistically, how much time do you need to plan the next day?
Yeah, I'd say 20 minutes is good.
Okay. So
20 minutes is definitely, then I'm talking, I can be quite organized the next day.
So if you had to now look at your schedule, you can, visualize it for a second. 20 minutes, where can you plan them at the end of your day so that they don't compromise the glass of wine, Netflix, and time with your wife?
They definitely can't, I don't know. Probably not a good idea if it happens after the glass of wine. And there needs to be a kind of now I'm done with the day, and then I would enjoy the wine more. So I think it would somewhere be the kids have gone to bed, they're in bed, and definitely before I put my feet up. So that's where it would need to happen. And it's got stiff competition. But yeah, I think if I did a pit stop, had a tea at the table, and opened my laptop for 20 minutes, and maybe even set a timer, Alexa, timer 20 minutes, and just did it for 20 minutes. I think that, I'd be really curious about the impact of that.
Okay. Is it okay if I share with you why that's important and also how I do it?
Please. Yeah, please.
Okay. So there is this, again, it's a psychology term. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. Zeigarnik is a surname of a psychologist. I think she lived in the 20s. And she's originally, I think, from Russia, but then lived in Germany or something like that. I don't remember her full story. But what she did study is she studied this effect that when we finish the tasks, we remember them less in comparison with the unfinished tasks. So what she studied was particularly the waiters. So what the waiters, for example, when they collected an order and the order was already paid, they would forget this order very quickly. But they would remember the orders that were still untapped, that were still open. And so what she learned is that our brain actually remembers the things that we need still to do. And we can prime our brain to do them better. And that's why the planning ahead is important. So, for example, when you plan your day today and you tell to your brain that tomorrow you are going to do this, this, and that, your brain, while you are asleep, is going to already look for shortcuts on how to make these things happen. It's the same as, when you go doing sports, for example, you stretch first, right? is the same preparation. It's the priming of your brain. That's why you gave an example yourself, for example, earlier. When I prepare for those important meetings, they go really well, right? So it's the same thing. When you prepare for your day has less urgencies and has less unexpected. Of course, life can happen, but overall, you know what to expect. But also when you know what to expect, that's something that I learned from since I was very little, and my dad told me, planning removes the urgencies. It doesn't mean, a lot of people think that planning makes you rigid, but planning actually allows you to play that Tetris game because you can see everything clearly. When you don't see and everything is happening in your head, that's when it becomes chaotic because you don't know what's next, right? You're guessing. And so you don't know, where can I move this? But when you have your whole week planned and then you plan every single day, first of all, it takes you much less time to plan every single day, right? You need less than 20 minutes. And then on top of that, it allows for you to be so flexible because you can see ahead. You can see immediately what's happening. So the way I do it, and that's also part of my framework. So in my framework, I have 5 steps, right? And it's all about decision making because I do believe productivity is a game of decisions. So the first, you need always, it's a pause. You need a goal. You need to start in mind anything that you do. The same for a task, your day, your year, anything. And so for your day, you need to have a goal and it needs to be one must do. That thing, it doesn't happen. It doesn't matter if you don't do anything else, but that one, if you manage to do that one, done, you won. Okay. And so that's an important part of the planning process. And then the second step in my framework is what I call rewind, is the preparation. Okay, don't start running. That's the problem that we have. We click play too fast. We start doing. The preparation is very important. And so what I have in my calendar at the end of every single day, but it's a tiny little blocker of 15 minutes that I do before I close my computer, so I don't have to reopen it afterwards, right? Because
Smart. I like this.
I need my brain to slow down and, relax and get energized again for the next day. So, but that is a blocker that I move around because one day I finish working at 6:30, another at 7:30, another sometimes I deliver workshops late at 8, and that's okay, right? So you can move it all around. But that's the 15-minute that allows me to plan the next day, review it already, but actually it's already been planned because I do my weekly planning on Friday where I take a bit longer than 15 days to kind of time box my next week. And then every day I relook at it. Is it still valid? Oh no, I need to prioritize this one. So I'll move this one. This one goes back to Friday, for example. So that's what I call the Tetris game. You kind of play it.
Yeah.
But also within those 15 minutes, what I do, and that's something that you mentioned earlier, it's about that reflection backwards. I look at my day and yes, this is what I planned, but did I actually do it? And so what I do, I go and update what really happened in my day. So if I had a meeting planned, for example, for 30 minutes, but it took 60 minutes, I'm going to put it 60 minutes. So the next time I plan and I have a similar meeting, I know that it's never going to take 30 minutes. And that's how I build awareness. Yeah. That's how I build awareness about new things that I need to do, about, my habits, about my energy levels. You talked about energy. And in the beginning, you gave this example of the traffic light method, and the tasks that are giving you energy and tasks that are draining you. So we don't have unlimited amount of energy. We only have between 2 to 4 hours. We're human beings. That's normal. Even your computer, is going to go nuts if you keep it on all the time, right?
Yeah.
So you need to understand where you have those 2 to 4 hours of good energy. And use them for what's important to get done, for that goal that you need to achieve during the day. I'm a morning person. I know my hours, the highest energy hours are in the morning from 8 to 11. These are my 3 big hours. I can be really, really productive. Afterwards, I'm still productive. It just, again, probably it's a lot of training and stuff, but I can see the decline. And closer it gets to lunch, the slower I get, and I say to myself, okay, stop, right? Productivity is a lot about knowing when to stop, because there's no point of pushing when you don't have nothing else to give. You're just going to take longer to do something. So this is what I learned actually doing that little exercise in those 15 minutes of planning and looking backwards. So I call it play and replay. Play is how am I going to play next week and next day, but replay, I'm replaying the day.
So good.
Okay. And so I have it every single day. And to your point, I challenged you a little bit on, I prioritize the evening with my family. Yeah, but does it have to take the planning? Does it have to take the whole evening? It doesn't. And it's the same thing as any new task, right? When you probably are starting to do something new, I don't know, you've never cooked pasta before, okay? So obviously the first time you cook, everything is much slower. You're going to read the recipe, you're going to check and things. But as soon as you've done it 10 times, cooking pasta is going to take you 15 minutes. Right. So the same thing when it comes to building that habit on planning. In the beginning, it's going to take you a little bit longer. But with the building of that awareness, the time that you actually need to play the next day, and with good time boxing, because many things are going to be already time boxed, you don't need even 15 minutes to actually do that. And then on Friday, I take longer because I look at the week ahead. I schedule, I look at what is the weekly goal that I need to achieve. And to
Wow,
achieve...
you have weekly goals as well. So we have daily goals and you have a goal for the week.
Yeah. So because when I look at my weekly goal and I put it on top of my calendar, so I remember this. So when I go through my to-do list, which is endless, and when you work for yourself, you want to do everything and you have millions of ideas. So it allows you to actually pick those to-do lists and turn them into must-do in your calendar. And that's why it doesn't matter if you have endless to-do list, because that doesn't matter. That's fine. Because something that is not important for this week might be important, might become a must-do next week. But this week, it's not moving you closer to that weekly goal that you're working on. So it means that it can be postponed, right? And so then, and then based on that, I kind of plan Tetris, block my calendar, and every day I review it, and then Friday comes again, I do the week, and then I do...
Do you also do the replay for the week?
Yes.
Look.
Yeah, but because
Really?
I've done it already every single day, it goes really fast.
Yeah. But I like that aspect as well, also for celebrating some of the wins, because otherwise one's always in the mindset of what can be optimized. But I'm also thinking maybe there's some cool stuff that you did during the week. And I think I'm the kind of person who would like to maybe write those down, or definitely challenge myself to think more about some of the things that actually went really well, because my brain immediately, like a fly going to a light source, it goes to the thing that can be optimized or improved.
Yeah, but I think it's normal to want to improve things.
Yeah.
But I also think that we need to we are not robots, right? It's not about squeezing every minute of the day. It's about achieving things that you want to achieve and make them happen, or make progress towards those things. And that's why a lot of people are in the action mode, and that's another bias psychology element that we have to our being, is that we are constantly in action, right? A lot of people say you need to stop being busy. Yeah, but here's the fact: I'm busy right now. Am I good busy or bad busy with you? But I'm busy. I mean, I can't talk to my family. I can't go and cook a meal. I can't read a book. I can't watch a movie. I'm busy with you. Right. And that's okay, because I'm having great conversation. I'm having great time. We're doing it for a reason. Each of us has a goal, and that's great. But the fact is, I am busy right now. Right. Yeah. And that's absolutely fine. So being busy is actually a human thing. Because we are constantly in action. Just try to sit with yourself for 5 minutes doing nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not listening to music, not reading, not scrolling on your phone. Just try it. You'll see how difficult it is, because there is a massive flow of thoughts that comes into your head, right? So it's okay to be busy. And I think we need to kind of tone down this conversation that it's not okay. It's absolutely fine. You just need to be mindful what you're busy with. right? And choose wisely. That's why for me, it's everything about decisions. When you are with your family, you're not on the phone. When you're on the phone, you're not with your family. So that's the intention that counts. But busyness is there. It's just human. That's how we are. Yeah.
There was a lot of value there, Kate, already, of your how you do it. You plan ahead for the next day. You also replay the previous day, and you're very conscious when you're going into preparation mode and when you're going into doing mode. There's a clear difference in your mind between that. Also, something that I think will have big potential for me is the idea of a daily goal, being very intentional, setting the most important meetings maybe in the time when I have the most energy, but also structuring those meetings accordingly. There was a lot of...
And colors. Don't forget the colors.
Okay, so tell me about the colors. When you open your calendar, how does that...
I have only 3 colors. Because once again, when I look at my calendar, I need a reminder that I have a life. Just general, I have a good life. And what does it mean, good life? For me is that one, I work because I enjoy working. But the fact is that 99.9% of us have to work for one way or another. So I don't color meetings or anything. Anything that is work is one color. And for me, that's blue. And that's a shade of blue that I like. That's it. Blue is structure.
This color?
And a bit different. Linked to my branding. So anyways.
Okay.
So it's because it's also a color that is a color of structure, a color usually of productivity. So that's why I picked the color blue. But also it's because it's a color that I generally like. The second color that I have is yellow. And yellow is all about family, sports, fun, lunch, dinner, walks at the beach. Anything is yellow because yellow is energy and it's joy, right? It's kind of this positivity. And that's what it is, right? We need that energy to be productive. And we can manage that. We can manage time, but we can manage that energy. So that's the replenishment part, the joy part. And then the third color that I have is green. And green is about growth. And that's all about the things that I study, the coaching therapy sessions that I have for myself. So not that me coaching, but actually me being coached or courses that I take, for example. And then when I look at this, I have only 3 colors, and that allows me to see, where my time goes. And that also a reminder, because that's very easy sometimes to say, I only work. But how do you know? When you have 300 colors in your calendar, it's very hard to see where is work, call it, after work, right?
Yeah.
But when you have this 3 calendar, it truly allows me to see, well, I do work because, I have to work and I like working, but I also have actually other things. I'm not missing out. But if I don't have that right now, but if I do see, for example, everything is blue and this week I didn't do anything, yellow except lunch and dinner, then there is a problem, right? Then it's a trigger immediately to myself. Ooh, slow down, right? We need something else in your life, right? But I think for me, the 3 colors work very, very well. I recommend to stick to a maximum 5. 5 is a really good tip overall because just remember, your 5 fingers on one hand. If you need more fingers to count your goals, your KPIs, your colors, your to-dos for one day, you are in what is called the paradox of choice trap. There is a big, big chance you're going to have a lot of difficulties to choose what's worth to be doing and what's not, what to prioritize. It will give you a lot of stress. You might end up not making any decision at all. You might end up procrastinating. And at the end, you look at it at the end of the day and say, well, I haven't done anything. And then you feel bad.
The compass spins. Yeah.
Yeah. So make your calendar something that is nice to look at, but gives you the right emotions for you to keep going. The color red for me is probably not the one.
No, but I like your colors a lot. I like being able to see in one look, if you look at the week, what did I do during my work time to recharge my batteries? So being able to see that yellow color, I think that's a really good one. For me, it's walking the dog. For me, it's having lunch, going outside, but being able to, without looking at the details, seeing like, how was I recharging my battery? And maybe even to use that in those replay moments when you look past the week, like, hey, how do I feel after this week? And connect that to the organization around the yellow color stuff that recharges you and general life things. I like that a lot.
You can add a fourth color for you, because for you it's a little bit different. You do have a corporate job, and then you have, what you're doing on the side with your podcast. So you can separate the two, because if you just use one color, it will look like you're giving everything to your corporate job.
I would do that.
Yeah,
for sure.
But if you do that, then you can see, well, yes, I'm still 100% present and I'm giving it my corporate job, but I'm still doing this, and then I'm having enough time for my dog, my family, and then my health, whatever you have in your life. So,
I'm going to send you a picture of my calendar in a week's time.
Good.
And
yes,
you can choose an emoji and send it back.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Thanks for the kind of the consulting part where you shared about what you do. I think that was very. I've learned a lot for sure.
Good. I'm glad. So you have that piece of a new system, something to try.
Yeah,
that's what we needed to get at the end of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love it a lot. Okay, let's end the coaching challenge there, because I think that's a lovely note to end on. I leave this session. I'm going to think about my colors, and I'm going to, first of all, just write down and digest what you just walked us through. But there's a lot of value there. And I think I want to go about it slowly, not try and do everything at the same time.
That's a good choice.
But mainly just start with the colors.
Yes.
Maybe start with the colors
Yes.
and start there. But, and I loved how you challenged me in the beginning just to reflect for a second. The way I was talking about it was that it's on par with my free time in the evening, and that it became 20 minutes. And then actually, if you're doing it regularly, it could be 5 minutes, So thank you for that. I have a small group of friends, neighbors, people who owe me money who represent the listener at the moment, although I haven't published any episodes. They wanted some Kate time too. So we have some questions we can unpack for them.
Yeah.
What's one small, maybe even silly change that makes a huge difference in people's lives when it comes to productivity?
Remove notifications.
We covered some. Sorry?
Remove notifications. That's, whenever I ask people who are overwhelmed and stressed and in the email jail, for example, they all still have their notifications on. So we met on LinkedIn with you through LinkedIn. I publish content regularly. I do run my own business. I do not have LinkedIn app on my phone. It's fine. Now the world is still standing, right? So I don't have any notifications on my phone, no email, except WhatsApp, because WhatsApp, it's where friends and family are.
It's your yellow time.
Yeah, exactly. Although WhatsApp, logo is green, but
it's green. It's your family. You're okay.
Yes, but that's one of the things that is going to completely change your life. Just see it for yourself. Whenever you look at people's phone, and I see thousands of notifications all around the phone, that brings you, again, remember the visual aspect, we talked about it, you're sending yourself a lot of stress. You're sending yourself that, what you were saying earlier, I don't fear, but I stress missing out on something. So when you have those 100 emails that, that little icon that says 151, you're like, I'm definitely missing something in there.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what you're sending to your brain. So remove that. And trust me, it's peace.
I love it. But every app asks you, is it okay if we send you notifications? They all
no.
want to be able, they want eyeballs, they want interesting. Okay. If you had to create a survival guide for me a professional who feels overwhelmed 24/7, here we go. What would your survival guide be?
I think it's a very big question, right? Because I
Yeah.
don't know who me is and what they do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's a little bit hard. I think that, again, the person who feels very much overwhelmed, I think the first place to start, once again, the notifications. You mentioned also the apps. We live in the world where every single website, every single place where we buy things or we do, they want us to download an app. If you are going to use this app only once, there is no point for you to download it. Okay. So just regularly go through your phone, check what you haven't been using for months, delete it. It's equally good on the web base as it is on the app. Okay, so when you actually need it, you can easily go there. That's number one. You don't need as many apps. If your phone, you need to scroll pages, there is something wrong. So 2 pages max if you don't want the overwhelm. Yeah. Then the second one would be the notifications. And the third one would be, again, coming back to your calendar. Your calendar needs to reflect your life, right? And priorities do change. Our life changed. There are things that I wanted in my 20s that I do not absolutely want in my 40s. That's normal. And that's why your calendar shows what is the priority to you right now. What is it? There is a great concept, and if this particular person likes to read books, I want to recommend one book. And that's the book called The Big Five for Life. It's a tiny book that you can read in a few hours. And it's a fiction, but you learn this idea. So the whole idea of the author is that you can measure the happiness of your life as if you would measure your experience going to a safari. When people go to a safari, how would they measure the experience? They are going to see how many of the big 5 animals they saw. If they saw 1, it's good experience. If they say 2, it's great experience. If they saw 3, it's fantastic. 4, awesome. 5, beyond any dream. And so what he recommends is that in life, we also have our big 5 for life. And then we plan and we only put in our calendar things that help us to move towards those things. So that at the end of our life, we have that happy life that we wanted. I apply this concept also to different things, like how would I know that this meeting is productive and it went well when I have my big 5? How do I know that this month is a good month? I have my big 5. And I love this concept because it's very hard to have a bad day or a bad meeting or a bad month, because most of the time you're going to hit at least once, like one thing, right? And that means that's already a good thing. And the overwhelm often comes from not seeing the progress where you're going.
Not measuring success.
I would say yes, but it's really about the progress. There is even another concept called the progress principle. There is a book and a TED Talk by Teresa Mabili. She basically studied that we're much more motivated by progress rather than the goals themselves. But in order to see progress, you need to know where you're going. So the overwhelm comes from doing, but not seeing the progress. Why do you not see the progress? It's because you don't know where you're going. And so the concept of the big 5, sometimes for people who are extremely overwhelmed and they have difficulty to settle on one thing, on one destination, it's a good concept for you to just streamline a little bit your busyness and give it a little bit of direction. And so that you feel less overwhelmed right away.
Oh, I'm going to be curious what that individual says. Looking forward to that. Okay, let's see what else we got. You must hear so many people say, I just don't have enough time. Can you tell us a time when you helped someone completely rethink that?
Oh, but with every client, because they all come and say that I don't have enough time. And that's an interesting thing, right? We are, it's not my words, I'm quoting, maybe paraphrasing a little bit, Barry Schwartz, who is the author of The Paradox of Choice. We are surrounded by so many time-saving devices, but more than ever, we are running out of time. Why? Because we are constantly chasing more. right? More apps, doing more. Every single app, productivity apps, tells you you will be able to do more. You don't need to do more. You just need to do the right things, right? With AI, you're going to go faster. You don't need to go faster, right? Because when you go faster, you don't see what's worth doing and what's not worth doing, right? So actually, you need to learn to slow down to be productive. This way, you don't get busy with things that are absolutely not worthwhile.
It's interesting. I mean, if I listen to some of the coaching sessions I've had on this podcast, this has come up so many times. So counterintuitive, slow down to become better, to question things instead of going faster and faster. Sometimes being more effective requires slowing down first and taking stock.
And another point to this specific question is that because people, again, are looking for apps and things to become more productive, calendar, that's the easiest way for you to get back your time. Because a lot of people don't time block, right? So your calendar needs to represent your life. That's how you see where your time goes. But if you don't know where your time goes, you can't have more time. And then there is another thing. I'll bring it back to something that you said in the very, very beginning. You said you were very much surprised when you told me your anecdote story, a little story. You were very much surprised when you added a thing to your own list voluntarily. How actually you found time to do it. You found time to do your podcast, do it well. And plus, it made you better in your own job, right? It's because a lot of people want time, but they don't know what for. And when you don't know, why are you looking for more time? You're not going to get it. But when you have that specificity, I want the time for because that matters to me. And you say to your brain, you'll always find time. We find time for things that are important. We don't have time simply because we don't want to have time because these things are not important for us.
Lovely. So we're nearing into the last part of the show, and it's called the Parting Challenge. I have 2 questions for you, Kate. One's a question about a billboard. Imagine the listeners would be driving past the same billboard every day to work, and they would see a billboard and they would see a message from Kate on productivity, on your theme. What would it be?
I think the first thing that I said also in the beginning is that productivity is not busyness, but to be productive, you need to get busy, good busy. So productivity is a game of decisions. It's really a choice. Nobody puts things in the app that you have there. It's, you put them. You're making those choices, right? App is not doing the things for you. You are doing that, right? So we need to learn to choose what deserves our time and what doesn't. Yeah.
Cool billboard. Okay.
A little
And
long.
maybe, yeah. But still, I like the bit about the good busy. I'm seeing like it's underscored, good busy. If you think about the listeners, maybe some of which might feel overwhelmed, stressed, what would be one simple action you would want them to do to test something out, to see if it works? Maybe something that's quite small. I mean, we spoke about a couple of tricks, but what would your kind of challenge to the listeners be on how to improve if they feel overwhelmed?
I think we've given quite a lot, and I don't want to be repetitive, so I want to give something new.
Yep.
I think and I talk about it in my preparation part of my framework, we need to understand that there is a big connection between our external world and our internal world. And that's driven a lot by our visual cues. So what I recommend to listeners today is, for example, because we're mostly talking about work, for example, or even in your personal spaces, look around. Look and ask yourself, what do you feel looking around your space, around your work, your desk, your workspace? What kind of emotions are you feeling? And do that mindful exercise, call it Marie Kondo or whatever you want to call it, but recreate a space for yourself that will bring you the emotions that you're looking for. Okay. Because that's very important. And one of the easiest thing to have more positive emotions in your life is to surround yourself with more green things. And it's that these are plants. So if you don't have a plant at home, a tiny one, if you don't have, or maybe you have it somewhere, but you don't see it, make it more visible. And if you want to go a little bit cuckoo, like I do sometimes, talk to them. It's better. But green things give you a lot of positive emotion. So introduce them to your life, because our external worlds, what we see, do color those perceptions that we have inside of us. So
what's a thing, Kate, you say to your plants?
Oh, I say hello. I talk to them. I say, well, yeah, I
They
know.
have names?
No, they don't. They don't. My friend has, but I talk to them and I feel like they're talking back. And you say, oh, you didn't give me water. I say, I know, I'll give you later today and stuff. Yeah. So, everybody has their our own cook stuff, but I love my plants.
So if the listeners would want more Kate, where can people find out more about what you do and what you're about?
So LinkedIn is the place where it's probably the easiest way to find me. My website, thegoodbusy.com. I do offer right now, but depending when the podcast comes out, but I do currently offer a free goal setting workshop as well that you can sign up for. And I've created only last week an account on Substack. So I'm going to publish my newsletter on Substack. So if readers are on Substack already, that's a great place to find me as well.
Tell us about the goal setting workshop.
So in the goal setting workshop, it's 60 minutes, and we are firstly going through 3 key problems, common problems that we face in the goal setting. And then at the end of this, we're doing already 2 tiny exercises, but that allow you to walk away with one effective goal. Because again, I'm not going to give too much details, but this is basically where we have 3 problems and we are solving them. And then in order for the participants to go forward and start moving towards their goal, I'm doing a mini laser coaching session with one brave volunteer. And other people can kind of listen and answer these questions for themselves. Or they can just take note of the questions. And I explain the importance of why I'm asking these particular questions and how are they helping them to move. So what they get at the end of the workshop is they walk away with one effective goal, but they also get a blueprint for effective goal setting that they can use for a big goal, yearly goal, monthly goal, meeting goal, project goal, daily goal, anything. It's the same.
Kate, thank you so much for joining. I leave this call and this session inspired.
Thank you.
I had a lot of fun. I think you're a lovely person. And I'm also very grateful that you shared a lot of the way you go about things. And I look forward to trying them out. I will send you a picture of my calendar in a few weeks.
Looking forward.
And I hope to talk more. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Coach me